Have you ever wondered how clouds are made? Well, that's a great question. Clouds are created by the water cycle, which shows the different changes that water goes through, as well as how Earth's water moves. So for today's activity, we're actually going to get to make our own clouds with the use of this homemade model of the water cycle that we are going to make ourselves out of a Ziploc bag. First, let's gather our materials. You're going to need a pitcher full of water. You can either dye it blue or leave it plain. You're going to need a Sharpie or permanent marker. You'll need a Ziploc bag. You'll need tape and some kind of coloring tool. I recommend colored permanent markers or gel pens, but you have to be careful with the gel pens because they will rip the bag. So now I am starting on drawing my model of the water cycle. I started off with drawing the sun at the top of the bag with a permanent marker. The sun is very important in the water cycle because it sort of powers it like a battery. It's the sun along with the natural movement of the Earth's water that causes the water to change states. This cycle of water changing and moving is the water cycle. Now, as you can see here, I am adding my clouds to my model. And we were talking about how clouds are formed earlier. They are formed through a process of the water cycle called evaporation. Evaporation occurs when heat and energy from the sun change water into a gas. So it goes from a liquid to a gas like you would see when you boil water in a pot and it makes steam. Kind of cool, huh? Now our next step in the water cycle is also our second step to form clouds. And this step is called condensation. And this occurs when the water vapor we just talked about is warmed and rises into the air. And then when it rises, it cools down because air is colder up higher. And it will condense or turn back into a liquid water. And speaking of a liquid water, you can see now that I'm adding some raindrops to one of my clouds. And rain, which is called precipitation, is another step of our water cycle. And precipitation also includes snow, which is just when it's so cold that the raindrops freeze and become a solid form of water. So snow, they like form of ice, which is solid water. And this returning of the clouds to the earth is called precipitation. Now, as you can see, I am starting to fill in the rest of my diagram. I added an ocean, some land with a tree to show it's land, a little lake in the corner, and then below the lake I do something called groundwater, which is what occurs when the water from a lake or other body of water seeps into the ground and stays there. That's the groundwater, and it can flow to the ocean. I'm also showing another form of flowing water, which is called surface flow or surface runoff, which is when snow melt or precipitation flows down a mountainside or other plain and into the sea or other body of water. And I'm also coloring my diagram here. You can use your Sharpies or pens for that. And once you're happy with all of your colors, now you can start labeling your diagram and adding arrows to show the direction the water is flowing. So as you can see, I'm showing that the groundwater is flowing from the lake back into the sea. I'm showing that the surface flow or the surface runoff is flowing down the mountain, labeling the ocean here. And then I'm also adding some squiggly lines to show the process of evaporation, which means the water is warm enough to turn from a liquid into a gas. And then when it's risen high enough to chill back out and like cool back down, then it can condense into a cloud. And I labeled that here, and here's my finished little diagram. So now it's time to add our water. Very carefully pour the water in before closing it tightly. Again, make sure that bag is closed tightly or it'll end up all over your desk and all over you. Anyway, now it's time to hang our bags up on the window with the tape. Make sure it's secured there tightly, and then we can wait for the sun to turn our water into a cloud. And as you can see, there is some what looks like steam in my bag and also some droplets running down the side, meaning the water has had the chance to both evaporate and condense. And as we discussed earlier, those are the two processes of the water cycle that are needed to form clouds. So if your bag looks the same, you just made a cloud. Congrats!